What kind of life does a person live when they do not even know their own last name? That question echoed in Sarah's heart on the cold autumn morning when her life changed forever. 3 months before the moment when a mountain man would ask her to take his name, Sarah climbed a narrow mountain path with torn boots and bleeding feet. She was only 21, with no family, no home, and not even a last name she could call her own. The wind cut through her thin dress, and her shawl did little to protect her from the cold, but she pushed forward. She had no choice. Behind her was danger, and ahead of her stood a mountain that might save her or destroy her. Sarah had been born in an orphanage in St. Louis. The nuns found her as a baby, wrapped in a blanket, with no note and no clue to her family. They named her Sarah, and that was all she had. For 21 years, she carried the weight of not belonging anywhere. Every place she tried to work, every house she served in, she was reminded that she came from no one and belonged to no one. Her last job was at a boarding house in the small town of Cedar Falls. She worked as a cook for 6 months and believed she had finally found a safe place. She cooked for the loggers and miners who stayed there, waking before dawn and working until late at night. She never complained and did everything she could to keep her job. But the owner's son, Thomas Henderson, had other ideas. He watched her in a way that made her skin crawl. At first, Sarah ignored it and stayed silent, hoping he would lose interest. He did not. One cold night, when most of the boarders were at the saloon, Thomas cornered her in the kitchen. He was drunk and angry, and he grabbed her, calling her a debt she must repay. Sarah fought hard, grabbed a cast-iron skillet, and struck him across the head. She escaped, but she knew she could never return. A man like Thomas would never allow a poor orphan girl to shame him. By sunrise, he would twist the story and turn the whole town against her. So she ran. For 2 days she walked with almost nothing to eat, drinking from creeks and picking a few wild berries. She followed the mountain path because she had heard whispers about a cabin up there. Some said a dangerous man lived alone in the woods. Others said he was a hunter with no need for company. Sarah did not know if he was safe, but she knew staying in Cedar Falls meant losing her freedom and maybe her life. As she reached a clearing, she saw the cabin. Smoke rose from the chimney, and the warm glow of firelight shone through the windows. The sight made her knees weak with relief. A garden sat beside the house. A well-stacked woodpile stood nearby, and bundles of herbs hung to dry under the roof. Someone lived here with care and order. Someone who planned to survive winter. Sarah stepped carefully across the clearing. Her teeth chattered, her body shook, and she could smell stew from inside. Her empty stomach twisted with hunger. Before she reached the porch, the cabin door opened. A tall man stepped out, holding a rifle pointed toward the ground. He had dark hair, a rough beard, and shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of the world. "That is far enough," the man said in a steady voice. "State your business." "My name is Sarah," she said, forcing her voice to stay calm. "I am a cook. I can clean and mend. I do not eat much. I only ask for work and a place to sleep that will not kill me." The man studied her torn dress, her bleeding feet, and the small bundle she held. "Name's Jake," he said. "This is my mountain. I do not care for company." "I do not need company," Sarah replied quietly. "I only need safety for one night." Jake looked at her for a long moment before stepping aside. "You look half dead. Come inside and get warm. We will talk in the morning." Sarah entered the cabin. The warmth hit her like a blessing. Jake gave her a bowl of hot venison stew and bread. She ate quickly, trying not to appear desperate, but the food felt like life returning to her body. Jake watched her with a calm, unreadable expression. "You said you cooked," he said. "What kind of cooking?" "All kinds," Sarah answered. "I cooked for 30 men daily in Cedar Falls. I can bake, preserve food, and make supplies last through winter." Jake nodded slowly. "Why did you leave?" Sarah took a breath. "The owner's son thought I owed him more than cooking. I disagreed and left." Quote. Jake's jaw tightened. "He hurt you?" "He tried. I stopped him. For the first time, Jake's mouth curved into a small, real smile. "Good. You can stay tonight. Spare room is in the back. We will talk about work tomorrow." For the first time in her life, Sarah slept in a place where she did not fear the night. The next morning, Jake found her already up preparing breakfast. She baked biscuits, cooked eggs and bacon, and brewed strong coffee. Jake watched her work and seemed impressed by her skills. They sat to eat, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt a small seed of hope. Jake spoke after breakfast. "Winter here is hard. I need help with storing food, smoking meat, and getting ready for the cold months. In return, you will have food and shelter until spring." Sarah nodded. This was more security than she had ever known. "I accept." Quote. Over the next few weeks, Sarah learned the ways of the mountain. Jake taught her how to prepare for winter, and she turned his simple life into a warm home. They worked as a team, and slowly, a quiet bond began to grow between them. A bond that neither of them fully understood. Yet, the first snowstorm arrived with a force that shook the cabin walls. Wind screamed outside like a living thing and pushed cold air through every crack it could find. Sarah and Jake had spent the previous days preparing the last jars of vegetables, smoking meat, and storing supplies in the root cellar. Now the storm tested their work. Jake checked the windows in the fire. "First storm of the season. It'll last a few days. Could be longer." Sarah wrapped her shawl tighter. "How bad can it get?" "Bad enough that a single mistake can cost a life," Jake said. Mountain rule number 1, always prepare for the worst. "What's rule number 2? Sarah asked. Jake looked at her. "Don't trust anyone you don't have to." Sarah felt a sting in her chest but nodded. "Do you trust me?" Quote. Jake met her eyes for a long moment. "I'm working on it." The storm trapped them inside for 4 long days. Snow piled nearly to the windows. The wind was so loud at night, it felt like the cabin stood inside a sea of roaring waves. But something unexpected happened during those days. Instead of growing restless, they grew closer. They talked in the evenings while sitting near the fire. Jake told stories from his childhood in Missouri, about climbing trees with his brother and fishing with his father. Sarah shared what it was like growing up in the orphanage. She told him how she had always waited for someone to show up and claim her, but no one ever came. One night, a loud crack from the fire made Jake jump as if a gunshot had gone off. His hand flew to his side where he kept a knife. His breathing turned sharp. Sarah realized he was not in the cabin anymore, not in his mind. He was back at war. "Jake," she said softly, "it's just the fire." He blinked and returned to the present. His voice was strained. "Sorry, sometimes the sounds bring back things." "The war," Sarah whispered. Jake nodded, his face tight with pain. "I was a scout. My last mission went wrong. 12 men followed me behind enemy lines. I led them into an ambush. I survived. They didn't." Sarah felt her heart ache for him. "You did what you thought was right. That isn't your fault." Jake stared at the fire. "I was the one they trusted. I was the one who chose the route. They died because of me." Sarah moved her chair closer. "Jake, those men chose to follow you because they believed in you. Staying alive does not make you guilty. It means you are still here for a reason." Jake looked at her, and something in his eyes softened. "How do you know what to say?" "Because I know what it feels like to carry guilt that is not yours," she said. "I blamed myself for being abandoned. I thought I was not good enough to keep. Some pain stays even when it shouldn't." For a moment they sat quietly, sharing a kind of understanding that felt deep and rare. Jake's hand slowly covered hers. It was not romantic, not yet. It was 2 broken souls holding on to the only person who truly understood their pain. As the storm grew worse, the chimney froze with ice, and the fire in the main hearth began to fail. Jake worked to fix it, but the storm made it too dangerous to go outside. They had to use the small stove in the kitchen to keep warm. "The temperature will drop too low," Jake said. "We will need to share body heat to make it through the night." Sarah's cheeks warmed. "Share?" Blankets, fully clothed, by the stove, Jake said quickly. I'll sleep on the floor. That doesn't seem fair, Sarah said. The floor will be colder. I've slept in worse. But the cold grew sharp enough to make their breath look like smoke. Sarah's shivering became so strong she could barely hold her cup. At last, Jake moved closer, careful and respectful, until they were wrapped in blankets side by side. Their bodies shared warmth, and slowly her shaking stopped. This is improper, Sarah whispered. Would you prefer freezing to death in a proper manner? Jake asked, and a small smile touched his lips. Sarah allowed herself to relax. When you put it that way, staying alive seems more sensible. For the first time in her life, she fell asleep in someone's arms, safe. Winter settled in, and days turned into weeks. They found a rhythm to life. Jake taught her how to read animal tracks, how to judge weather by the sky, and how to split wood safely. Sarah turned the cabin into a real home. She cooked meals that warmed the soul, mended clothes, and kept everything in order. The cabin no longer felt like a hiding place. It felt lived in. It felt like theirs. One quiet evening, after dinner, Jake closed the book he had been reading and looked at Sarah. When spring comes, you don't have to leave, he said, if you want to stay permanently. Sarah felt her breath catch. Are you sure? Quote, Yes, Jake said. This place stopped feeling like a prison when you arrived. Now it feels like a home. Sarah swallowed hard. It feels like home to me, too. For the first time, hope no longer felt like a dangerous dream. It felt real. Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know. Spring arrived late on the mountain, but when it came, it brought life back to the land. Snow melted, streams rushed with clear water, and the forest filled with birdsong. Sarah spent hours outside, sunlight warming her face after months indoors. She and Jake repaired winter damage, planted new vegetables, and worked side by side as if they had been together for years. Their bond was no longer uncertain. It was steady, natural, and deep. But the peace did not erase danger. One afternoon, after a brief visit from passing travelers, Jake's expression turned serious. You noticed how they looked at you, he said. Sarah had noticed. The men whispered among themselves, looking her up and down like she was something to claim. Jake continued. Word spreads fast. A woman living alone with a man in the mountains. The wrong people might come looking. You mean men like Thomas Henderson? Sarah said, her voice tightening. Jake nodded. If someone wants to challenge your right to be here, the law won't always protect a woman without a family name. But there is one thing men respect. What? Sarah asked. Marriage, Jake said simply. If you were my wife, no one could claim you, question you, or try to take you. Sarah looked into his eyes. Are you asking me to marry you? Jake's voice was careful. I'm suggesting a way to keep you safe, but that's not the only reason. This winter you changed this place. You changed me. I don't want you to leave. Sarah felt her heart swell. She had already fallen in love with the quiet, wounded man who had given her shelter and care. Yes, she said softly, not for protection, but because I love you. I can't imagine my life without you. Jake's face lit with warmth she had never seen before. I love you too, Sarah. They planned to go into town soon to make it official, but trouble arrived first. One cold morning in early June, Sarah was tending to the garden when she heard horses approaching. Jake stepped out of the smokehouse with his rifle. 4 men rode toward the cabin. Sarah recognized the slouched posture of the leader. Her heart dropped. Thomas Henderson, she whispered. Jake's voice was calm but firm. Go inside. Bar the door. Do not come out. Jake, there are 4 of them, she said in fear. I've faced worse, he answered. Go. Sarah wanted to argue, wanted to stand with him, but she saw the soldier in his eyes. This was his fight. She kissed him quickly, holding on to the man she loved. Come back to me. I will, Jake promised. Sarah ran inside, watching from the window as Jake faced the men. Thomas shouted across the clearing, I'm here for the girl. She ran off with my family's property. Hand her over. And maybe we don't kill you." Jake stood tall. "I don't see any property of yours. The only thief here is the man who tried to take what wasn't his." Thomas's face twisted with anger. "Give her to us, or we'll take her and leave you dead." Jake spoke with cold certainty. "Or you turn around and ride away while you're still breathing." The standoff exploded into gunfire. Jake moved with the skill of a trained soldier. He used the woodpile for cover and hit 2 of the hired men quickly, but Thomas and 1 more man flanked him, moving toward the cabin toward Sarah. Jake couldn't see them from where he was. Sarah made a choice. She grabbed the spare rifle, slipped out the back, and circled around through the trees. She had never fired a gun, but she remembered everything Jake had taught her. Her hands shook, heart pounding, but she pulled the trigger. The shot missed, but it made the men turn. Jake spun, fired, and dropped one of them. Thomas turned his gun toward Sarah. "There's my little runaway," he snarled, aiming at her. Before he could fire, Jake shot him straight in the chest. Thomas fell, silent. The forest went still. Sarah dropped the rifle, shaking. Jake reached her in seconds, pulling her into his arms. "It's over," he said. "You're safe." "You could have died because of me," Sarah cried. "You saved me," Jake said. "You were braver than any soldier I served with." Quote, "They held each other there among the pine trees, the danger gone, the future suddenly clear." "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "We bury the dead," Jake said. "Then we ride to Cedar Falls and tell the sheriff what happened, before someone else twists the story." "And then?" she whispered. Jake brushed a hand across her cheek. "Then we come home, and we get married, properly, so no one can ever question your place here again." "Jake?" He placed a gentle finger against her lips. "I'm not asking out of duty. I'm asking because I love you. You healed a broken soldier and gave him a reason to live again." Tears ran down Sarah's face. "I love you too." "Then marry me," Jake said. "Not for protection, but because we belong together." "Yes," Sarah said, this time with her whole heart. "Yes, I will marry you." Jake kissed her in the clearing where they had fought for their lives. The mountain stood quiet, like a witness to their promise. When they pulled apart, Sarah smiled through tears. "I still don't know my last name." Jake smiled back. "Then, take mine." Quote, "Sarah Morrison," she said softly, tasting the name. "Yes, that feels right." 2 souls who once belonged nowhere had found home in each other. The past fell away like melting snow, leaving only love, belonging, and a future they would build hand in hand.